They can put your shoes on. I'm able to sit comfortably on the toilet. I've never been able to do that.
On 1,000 Pound Sisters, family conflict has never been unusual, but Season 8 episode 4 crossed a line that viewers never expected to see broken, as the long-standing bond between Tammy and Amy Slaton finally cracked under the weight of years of unresolved pain, emotional imbalance, and personal transformation. What began as a tense family interaction quickly unraveled into one of the most devastating sister confrontations the show has ever aired, leaving both the cast and the audience stunned by how deeply personal and irreversible the moment felt. The argument didn't start loudly. It started with frustration, defensiveness, and words spoken in hurt rather than clarity. Amy, already overwhelmed by the pressures of motherhood, public judgment, and personal instability, appeared emotionally raw from the moment the conversation began. Tammy, on the other hand, entered the situation guarded and distant, carrying the quiet weight of someone who has spent years being emotionally dependent and is now trying, perhaps awkwardly, to protect the independence she fought so hard to earn. The clash between them wasn't just about what was said in that room. It was about everything that had gone unsaid for years. As voices rose and emotions spilled over, old wounds resurfaced, and what might have once ended in tears and reconciliation instead turned cold and final. Amy accused Tammy of changing, of becoming emotionally unavailable, of no longer being the sister who once stood beside her through every struggle. Tammy pushed back, explaining, sometimes clumsily, that her distance wasn't cruelty, but survival, a boundary formed after years of carrying emotional burdens that nearly broke her. The argument escalated when Amy revealed she had blocked Tammy on social media, a modern act that symbolized more than anger. It marked emotional withdrawal, a refusal to communicate, and a public declaration of distance. Tammy's reaction was immediate and visible, a mix of disbelief, pain, and quiet fury, as the reality set in that her sister had chosen silence over conversation. But the moment that truly shattered the atmosphere came when Amy, through tears and frustration, uttered the words no one ever imagined hearing on this show. "I don't have a sister anymore. My sister is dead to me." The room froze. Those words didn't feel like reality TV exaggeration. They felt heavy, final, and deeply human. Tammy's face told the entire story as her anger dissolved into hurt, and the woman who once relied on Amy as her emotional anchor suddenly looked like someone realizing she might have to stand alone. For years, Tammy and Amy weren't just sisters, they were survival partners. They endured poverty, health crises, public ridicule, and personal losses together. They fought side by side against doctors' warnings, online cruelty, and their own limitations. Their bond was built in hospital rooms, therapy sessions, and moments of shared despair that few people could endure, let alone on camera. That's why this fight felt different. It wasn't about jealousy or petty resentment. It was about two people growing in opposite directions at different speeds, carrying different forms of pain, and no longer knowing how to meet each other emotionally. Amy's life has been consumed by motherhood, exhaustion, and instability, leaving her feeling unsupported and unseen. Tammy, newly independent and confident after her transformation, is learning to prioritize her own peace, something she's never been allowed to do before. Instead of bringing them closer, these changes created emotional distance neither of them knew how to bridge. Family members present during the confrontation looked visibly uncomfortable, unsure how to intervene, because this wasn't playful sibling bickering. It was the kind of fracture that can permanently alter relationships if left untreated. Viewers immediately reacted online, divided between sympathy for Amy's emotional overload and understanding for Tammy's need to protect her mental health. Some fans praised Amy for setting boundaries, others accused her of weaponizing pain. Many defended Tammy, arguing that growth sometimes requires stepping away from chaos, even when love remains. But nearly everyone agreed on one thing: watching the collapse of the Slaton sisterhood was heartbreaking. The aftermath of the fight made the damage even clearer. Tammy withdrew emotionally, her body language shifting from confrontation to self-protection, arms crossed, voice controlled, eyes avoiding contact. This wasn't anger anymore. It was hurt solidifying into armor. Amy, meanwhile, remained emotionally flooded, speaking from exhaustion rather than intention, unable to articulate what she truly needed from her sister. Neither felt heard. Both felt abandoned. And that's why reconciliation didn't come easily. Later scenes showed Tammy alone, reflecting on a painful realization that every step forward she takes in her personal growth seems to cost her a relationship she once depended on. She admitted, quietly and without bitterness, that when she grows, she loses people. That independence, while empowering, also feels isolating. It was one of the most vulnerable admissions Tammy has ever made, revealing that beneath her confidence is a deep fear of emotional abandonment. This episode didn't focus on weight loss milestones or medical updates. It focused on something even more fragile: family connection under extreme pressure. Season 8, Episode 4 will be remembered not for spectacle, but for emotional truth. Words spoken in pain linger longer than anger ever does, and phrases like "dead to me" don't disappear when the cameras turn off. They echo. They reshape relationships. Whether Tammy and Amy can step back, cool down, and reconnect with a history that once bound them remains uncertain. What is clear is that viewers didn't just witness reality TV drama. They witnessed a genuine emotional rupture between two sisters who once fought the world together and now find themselves standing on opposite sides of a heartbreaking divide. And as the episode faded to black, one haunting truth remained: fights are loud, but it's the silence afterward that truly reveals how deep the damage runs. That fear Tammy expressed didn't come out of nowhere. It was the quiet realization that when one person evolves, the relationship around them is forced to evolve too, and not everyone is ready for that shift. Tammy is no longer the woman Amy once monitored, assisted, and emotionally anchored. She is healthier, more confident, and far less willing to absorb emotional volatility just to keep peace. What Tammy sees as boundaries, Amy experiences as withdrawal. And that disconnect lies at the heart of their collapse. As Amy vented to other family members, her pain revealed itself in a different shape. She doesn't feel empowered. She feels buried. Motherhood, responsibility, emotional exhaustion, and constant expectations have left her feeling unseen and unsupported. To Amy, Tammy's independence doesn't feel like growth. It feels like abandonment. Not intentional cruelty, but absence. That's what makes this conflict so devastating. Neither sister believes the other understands what they're going through. Tammy feels Amy refuses to accept who she's becoming. Amy feels Tammy refuses to acknowledge how much she's struggling. When two people are hurting simultaneously, compassion often disappears. Conversations turn into arguments. Listening turns into defense. Love doesn't vanish, but it becomes buried under pride, fear, and emotional fatigue. The decision to block each other on social media added a modern layer of heartbreak that viewers instantly recognized. Tammy and Amy didn't just share a private bond. They built a public journey together. Their milestones, jokes, setbacks, and victories unfolded online. Cutting off that connection wasn't just digital silence. It was symbolic. It said, "I can't witness your life right now." Fans noticed Tammy didn't retaliate publicly after the episode aired. No cryptic posts.
No emotional backlash.
Just silence. And silence often signals deeper pain than anger ever could. Amy, meanwhile, appeared emotionally depleted rather than furious. That's not the face of someone who truly wants to erase a sister. It's the face of someone who finally broke after holding too much for too long. Still, words spoken during emotional burnout leave permanent marks. Longtime viewers know Tammy and Amy have screamed at each other before, but this argument felt different. It wasn't explosive, it was heavy. There was no immediate reconciliation, no humor to ease the tension, no familiar signal that everything would eventually be okay. Instead, there was distance. And that distance terrified fans because 1,000-pound Sisters has never only been about weight loss. It has always been about their bond. Watching that foundation crack makes the entire journey feel unstable. Many viewers pointed out another powerful theme running through this season: identity shift. Amy became a mother. Tammy became independent. These transformations change how people give and receive love. Amy needs reassurance, presence, and emotional grounding. Tammy is learning limits, boundaries, and self-preservation. Without communication, those needs collide instead of align. Experts often say family conflicts aren't really about the surface argument. They're about feeling unseen. Episode 4 showed two sisters who still love each other deeply, but no longer recognize the person standing in front of them. And the tragedy is that neither actually wants to lose the other. Pain simply pushed them into saying things that sounded permanent during a temporary emotional storm. As the episode ended, viewers weren't given closure. They were left with uncertainty, and that can be more painful than a dramatic blow-up. Because now the question isn't whether Tammy and Amy will argue again. It's whether they'll find their way back to each other at all. This season makes one thing painfully clear. Healing the body was only half the journey. Healing family wounds may be far harder. Weight can be lost. Confidence can be rebuilt. But trust, once fractured, requires humility, time, and vulnerability to restore. And right now, both sisters are standing at a crossroads, waiting to see who will risk being hurt again by taking the first step back. That emotional standoff only intensified during the coffee shop meeting arranged by Tammy's girlfriend, Andrea. Intended as a peace offering, the sit-down was meant to be a chance for both sisters to speak honestly and possibly apologize. Instead, it became the moment everything collapsed further. Andrea chose a quiet cafe, hoping a neutral space would calm emotions and allow dialogue. But within minutes, the conversation began unraveling. Amy entered the meeting demanding an apology, clearly still carrying unresolved hurt. Tammy, feeling ambushed and misunderstood, shut down almost immediately. When Amy insisted she couldn't forgive Tammy without accountability, Tammy stood up, walked out, and refused to return, making it clear she didn't want cameras following her. Andrea admitted on camera that she underestimated how deeply wounded both sisters were. Inside the cafe, Amy also stormed off, overwhelmed and disoriented, even walking down the wrong hallway as emotions took control. Andrea followed, confused and distressed, realizing the reconciliation she hoped for was slipping away. Amy expressed her frustration bluntly, saying she only wanted to talk and be heard, not dismissed. Andrea encouraged her to sit back down, but Amy had already emotionally shut down, stating she didn't want a truce anymore. Andrea defended her intentions, explaining that Tammy had come hoping to make peace, but communication broke down instantly. In a confessional, Amy admitted what the meeting represented to her: an olive branch, a way of saying that even during conflict, love still existed. But when that attempt failed, the rejection cut deeply. Andrea tried one last time to bring Tammy back, gently asking her to reconsider. Tammy refused, repeating that she wasn't going back and nothing would change her mind. Andrea's frustration was visible as she admitted she didn't know what else to do. Inside, Amy reached her emotional breaking point, crying and declaring she couldn't continue absorbing what she described as toxic treatment. She made it clear she was done being Tammy's emotional punching bag. Andrea tried to comfort her, acknowledging her pain and effort. Still, Amy drew a hard line, stating Tammy was out of her wedding and out of her life. Then came the words that define the episode, Amy declaring the sister bond dead. Not shouted for drama, but spoken through exhaustion and grief. And in that moment, viewers didn't witness reality TV theatrics. They witnessed emotional collapse. "Ain't nobody yelling," Chris says gently as he notices Amy's tears beginning to fall. His voice is calm, controlled, almost careful, as if he understands that raising it even slightly could push her further over the edge. In a confessional, Chris explains what he sees happening in real time. The more Amy gets overwhelmed by emotion, the harder it becomes for her to think clearly or respond rationally. Sometimes, he says, the only way forward is to soften the approach, not sharpen it. But Amy is already past the point where calm advice can easily reach her. When she finally opens up, the strain she describes runs far deeper than a single argument or misunderstanding. She confesses that her relationship with Tammy has become a constant source of stress. In Amy's eyes, Tammy doesn't just criticize her occasionally, she actively undermines her. Amy feels nitpicked constantly, judged for how she dresses, how she speaks, how she carries herself. Even small choices feel scrutinized. The emotional weight of always feeling watched, corrected, or mocked has taken its toll. Chris and Misty try to ground her, reminding her that they are there to support her. They admit they are believers in tough love. When they speak bluntly, they do it without a filter. But they also emphasize that their intentions have never been to hurt her. Family, Chris says, is supposed to pull together, not splinter apart. And with everything going on between Amy and Tammy, the situation needs to be smoothed over, not ignored. Amy, however, snaps back. Her patience is gone. She challenges the idea of endless reconciliation, asking how many times she is expected to forgive, forget, and give another chance. She refuses to sit quietly and accept advice that feels dismissive of her pain. She vents about the emotional gymnastics she performs daily just to avoid triggering Tammy. She explains how she deliberately limits herself, waiting for Tammy to speak first, controlling how she moves, monitoring what she wears, just to avoid becoming the target of criticism. Chris pushes back gently but firmly, pointing out that responsibility exists on both sides. Amy hasn't been perfect either. The relationship didn't deteriorate overnight, and it didn't happen because of one person alone. Amy acknowledges that. She talks about her own growth, her attempts to change, to mature, to stop repeating harmful patterns. She insists she is trying to move forward, to learn from her mistakes, to finally get her life together and be an adult in ways she hasn't before. Misty and Chris then ask the question that hangs over the entire family. Would Amy be open to reconciliation if the whole family came together to clear the air? Chris admits in a confessional that if Tammy and Amy don't get past this, it won't just affect the two of them. The entire family will feel the consequences. And that's the truth Amy is struggling with. Because while she understands the importance of family, she's exhausted from being the one expected to absorb emotional damage for the sake of unity. Season 8 of 1,000-Pound Sisters isn't just emotional television. It is breaking Amy Slaton. Under constant family pressure, separated from meaningful time with her children, and pushed beyond her emotional limits, Amy is now reportedly considering something no one expected: walking away from the show entirely. This is the story viewers weren't supposed to see. For nearly a decade, Amy has lived her life in front of cameras. What began as a raw, unfiltered look at two sisters battling obesity, poverty, and deeply rooted personal struggles evolved into one of reality television's most recognizable franchises. But as the series enters its 8th season, the reality behind the scenes has grown far darker than what airs on screen. According to interviews, on-set sources, and individuals close to the production, Amy Slaton is facing what many describe as the most devastating period of her life. Even more alarming is the growing belief that she may permanently step away from the show. This isn't a publicity stunt. It isn't a dramatic pause designed to stir attention. Insiders insist this is the result of years of emotional strain finally reaching a breaking point. Season 8 was marketed as a season of growth, Tammy's transformation, shifting family dynamics, personal reinvention. But behind the cameras, Amy's experience moved in the opposite direction. Viewers noticed the shift almost immediately. Amy appears quieter, less animated, more distant. Her humor, once effortless and central to her presence, now feels forced or absent. According to those close to production, this change isn't performance, it's exhaustion. Amy has reportedly expressed that the show no longer feels like an opportunity, it feels like an obligation she is barely surviving. The pressure never turns off. Amy has publicly admitted feeling overwhelmed, but insiders say that word barely captures the reality. Pressure comes from every direction: family expectations, production demands, audience judgment, and the internal burden of always being perceived as the strong one. Family members often expect Amy to remain functional no matter what she's carrying emotionally. When she struggles, the response isn't rest, it's urgency. Scenes must be filmed. Conversations must continue. Storylines must progress. Production insiders describe a relentless schedule that leaves little room for recovery. Emotional moments are revisited again and again. Conflicts are prolonged. Vulnerability is captured, replayed, and dissected. Amy reportedly feels she has lost control over how her life is portrayed. Private pain becomes public consumption, often without her emotional readiness or consent. The family dynamic that once felt chaotic but united has turned inward. Sources say Amy feels trapped between family loyalty and personal limits she can no longer meet. What once felt like mutual dependence now feels like constant demand. She has allegedly confided that she feels more like a manager of everyone else's emotions than a sister, daughter, or individual. This dynamic intensified as the show continued. With every season, stakes rose. Privacy vanished. Emotional labor increased. Amy's identity within the family, once defined by caregiving, became a source of burnout. Insiders say she feels taken for granted, expected to absorb stress without complaint. And nowhere is this more painful than in the deterioration of her bond with Tammy. For years, their relationship defined the show. They survived together, struggled together, and relied on each other in ways few people could understand. But Tammy's physical and emotional progress altered that balance. While publicly celebrated, it quietly left Amy without the role she spent years inhabiting. She no longer feels needed. And according to sources, she doesn't feel replaced. She feels erased. Off-camera tensions reportedly run deeper than viewers ever see. Amy feels her pain is minimized, especially when compared to Tammy's success narrative. Losing the role of caretaker has forced Amy to question her value within her family and within the show itself. Motherhood, which was supposed to represent a fresh start, has instead become another source of guilt. Amy has admitted struggling to spend meaningful time with her children. Filming schedules, emotional exhaustion, and constant obligations leave her disconnected from the role she values most. What makes this worse is the lack of separation between her personal life and production. Parenting struggles are filmed, discussed, and analyzed. Amy reportedly fears her children will one day watch her most vulnerable moments on television. That fear has deeply affected her mental health. By mid-season, production members noticed signs of withdrawal. Amy limited conversations. She avoided long filming days. She appeared emotionally shut down, a coping mechanism, not indifference. Insiders report private breakdowns, isolation, and repeated discussions about leaving the show. These conversations weren't impulsive. They were quiet, serious, and persistent. Amy feels trapped between financial security and emotional survival. As filming continued, the idea of stepping away became more real. Insiders say Amy began questioning whether any amount of fame or income justified the damage being done to her well-being. TLC has not publicly addressed these claims, but concern behind the scenes is reportedly growing. Losing Amy wouldn't just change the show, it would destabilize it. But for Amy, the decision is personal, not professional. Season May 8's ultimately be remembered not as a triumph, but as the moment the cost of living publicly became unbearable. And this is only the beginning. As cameras pushed deeper into the season, a second, invisible force began shaping Amy's decline, the machinery of reality television itself.